when I think about taking a flight, it always starts with a weather briefing. Okay? And I want you to think about your team that you work with. There's a big new challenge ahead. You're already dreading it. You don't want to make the flight. You think, oh my gosh, this is going to be so difficult. We're going to have to fly through places we've never flown through before in an aircraft that we've never flown before. Maybe I don't have much experience in. Let's say we're also going to fly at night. Okay? There are all sorts of challenges. So you want to start with a solid weather briefing. And as pilots, we begin with a weather briefing that's really just a big picture overview. I would never get into an airplane and fly without understanding the weather to the best of my ability. I will not climb into the cockpit and just rely on what the airplane is telling me. No offense, avionics, I get it. But I want to know on the ground where I'm safe and I can safely make a rational decision without the added stressors of being in control of an aircraft while I'm thinking about the weather. So I start with the big picture view. What would the news people tell you, right? There's front moving in, it's going to be hot or whatever it's going to be. So from there, you get more and more specific. But when you think about the weather that you'll be flying through, not only do you have to consider the elements in the environmental situation that you're going into, but you also need to think about the strength of your flight crew and the capabilities of the aircraft that you're flying, right? If you've been in the business for 50 years and you've got the experience to know, I'm strong enough to make it through that storm, maybe my wings will flex and bend a bit, but they're certainly not going to snap off. Imagine what that same storm would feel like the first time an employee were to tackle that same challenge that you're so comfortable with. So when you have a younger member on your team that maybe hasn't experienced that, think about it in terms of the storms, quote-unquote storms, that you've flown through and how far your wings can stretch, and use that to help them understand what they're flying into. And also, I think it's fun to work with younger folks on teams, because their excitement and their enthusiasm and their fears, it can keep us, give us that reality check and really make sure we understand everything we're flying into. Next, of course, is the pre-flight examination. Okay? Would you guys get on a plane that the pilot hadn't done a thorough pre-flight on? No, you want to kick the tires, you want to look under, inside, outside, everything. On top of your weather briefing, you want to know, is the fuel clean? Has it been contaminated? Do we have enough oil? Who flew this last? Did somebody fill out, if something broke on the last flight or they had a hard landing, did anybody document that correctly? Okay? When we get excited about new ideas, or maybe we want to skip steps, back in the business sense again, it can be really easy to skip the pre-flight. We see that destination, we want credit for getting it done. Oh, it'll be fine. We've got the right team, we've got enough resources. And then you're halfway through your mission and you're going, gosh, we didn't have enough fuel to get here. We didn't have the right partners, the right sponsors to get us there. Whatever it's going to take. The clients aren't happy because one part was, left out of our planning. So think about the pre-flight and the weather briefing as the things that you do here on the ground before you involve anyone else in that mission, because the stronger and more intelligently you go in towards any goal, that's where it's a lot easier to bring that additional flight crew in. You're going to have baggage handlers lining up to help in case anything goes wrong when they see you working with a very thorough understanding of not only the environment, but the aircraft and the weather. Now, emergency procedures, I like to think of those as the backup plan. Pilots, we memorize our emergency procedures, and then we go back to a checklist again when anything goes wrong. So are there ways, as you're team building, to start thinking about plan B, plan C, plan D, plan Z if you have to, right? Because if the destination is the only goal that you've got in mind and it doesn't matter how you get there, that leaves you with a lot of options. Most people think I've got north, south, east, west. Well, you've got between 360 and an infinite amount of possibilities how you can get there within the boundaries of the rules that we have to follow within the aviation industry. But those emergency procedures, talking about them beforehand, knowing that they're an option, can give you that settled feeling in flight, where when you take off, you don't have to worry about calculating those details while you're already up there. Scanning your instruments, that's incredibly important when you're thinking about instrument flying, right? In the literal sense, you're flying through the clouds as a pilot, you can't see 10 feet in front of you, and you are trusting the avionics in the aircraft to tell you all the information that you need. Well, just like I was falling into that trap of, as soon as I passed the point of no return, thinking that my engine instruments weren't telling me the correct information or something was wrong, I was hearing those noises along the way. If I hyper-focus only on, let's say, my fuel gauge, if I'm running low on fuel, and I'm not paying attention to my altitude and my airspeed and my heading, oh, I'm in big trouble, right? If I only focus on my altitude, but I don't focus on my heading, one of those things is going to steer you very far off course. So I want you to start thinking about scanning your instruments, and not every single part of your goal or your process that you're working on. You don't have to go through every detail every day, because that would be a true waste of time. But when it comes to scanning, you want to scan the meaningful information that you and the rest of your flight crew have agreed. These are our no-go or go decision makers, right? If we fit these parameters, we are still going to keep flying the course, and we can stay flexible within there. But fixating on one of those instruments is going to get you pretty far down a path that it's hard to dig yourself out of.